Yes. No, I don't have yours. They're in the pockets by that young lady right there. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. We got it. Louis? You sent me an email, I think, Louis. No? Okay, never mind then. Okay. Thank you. Yes. Pleased to meet you. Have a great night. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Anybody that wants to speak? What's that? Do you want to move that, Robert? Yeah, I'm okay with that. If somebody says anything, she says something, then okay, that works for me.
Mr. Mahalik?
Hey, Mike.
How are you?
Good.
Hey, John, how you doing?
All right.
We need Carol and Kathy. It's be a fun one, Ken. I'm doing okay. I was getting ready to get sick and put it on the pro tem, but then he said he can't be here. Jim, I said it was about time for me to get sick and put it on the pro tem.
Oh.
These chairs suck. All right.
Dodge is here to both gone.
Dodge is with his sister, so she's doesn't have much time left.
His sister?
It's his sister, yeah. So
Next year is under repairs.
yep, that is correct. We need Carol and we need Kathy Fenton.
And we're both here.
Where?
Is that Greg's daughter? Is that Greg's daughter?
Say again?
Is that
Yeah, it's
Greg's
correct.
daughter?
I'm looking for Lisa. That's what it's.
Two daughters.
I never did read the minutes.
Yeah, the twins. They were born September 10th, 2001, and my son Kevin was September 13th.
No.
Yeah, class of.
Damn it.
2020 and 2018.
Oh, no, there's two of them. Okay, so then there's one.
Do you have the copy of the minutes?
2017.
2020 would be, they'd be the sophomores, right? Yeah.
So, right here.
Shelby,
Shelby's
yeah, there's
there.
twins that were born 2 days or 3 days before Kevin was. I also got a daughter that's playing at Lewis.
Oh, really?
Too. Yeah, she's
It's got 4 daughters.
he had two. Decided to try for a boy and he had twins. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Karma.
Oops. You know Greg, right?
Yeah.
Well, he was in the FBI and his two daughters were born 2 days before or 1 day before the terrorist attack.
Oh, really?
So he was on leave for that.
Yeah, and you weren't going anywhere once you got there, right?
What's that?
You weren't going anywhere if you weren't
Yeah.
already airborne. Do we have everyone? Now the clerk left. Ready? I got everyone. Call the meeting to order. Call the roll.
Trustee Fenton.
Here.
Trustee Dodge. Trustee Guerra. Trustee Ruzick.
Here.
Trustee Calandrello.
Here.
Trustee Carroll.
Here.
Mayor Peacock.
Here.
Please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of November 6, 2017 regular meeting minutes.
Are there any changes to the minutes? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Carroll.
I move to approve the minutes of the Board of Trustees meeting of November 6th, 2017.
Second. The motion has been moved in second and call the roll.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello.
Aye.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
Aye.
Community Pride Award, Sandburg, 2017 Sandburg Regional Champion Girls Volleyball.
Sure.
What?
You played volleyball.
I play volleyball.
You played volleyball, Carol.
So every now and again, we have these moments before board meetings where we get to honor sports teams or people who have had special accomplishments. And this tonight, we have quite a few, actually, because it's the end of fall sports season. So what we're going to do is start with the girls volleyball team, who were the Class 4A regional champion. And I remember when I went to Sandburg, that was the first team we had. Actually, it was girls volleyball was the only team my whole time there that went downstate. So the tradition has continued with you girls doing a great job. So I'm going to call your names one at a time, and Trustee Ruzick will hand you the certificates. Rachel Krasowski. I didn't play girls volleyball. Abigail Stephanon.
Abby. Nice job, Ab.
Katie Decker. Maureen Emery. Shelby Stephanon.
All right. Shelby. Nice job, Shelby.
Grace Gerst. Madison Hart. Lauren Mazira. Megan Dzatkowick. Annie Stachnik. Sydney Reeder. And if I could have a big round of applause for the Class 4A regional champions. And if the coach would like to come up and say a few words? And Coach Vales, here you go.
We appreciate the recognition for the volleyball team. This is 14 regional championships in a row. We continue to strive to get downstate again, but we'll continue to do our best. Thanks.
What's that? Anybody else want to come down?
Played the city.
So now we have 3 Pioneer football teams to honor. And how many people in here besides the current players either who played Pioneers? So there's a couple of us that did. So I was around when it started in 1975. And it's a testimony to the volunteers that get an organization going, because back then we were all kicked out of one league as St. Michael's moved into a different league, and we had to start a whole new team, a whole new program. And basically, parents got together, parents got on the board, including my dad, who was on the board, and started up a program, got all the equipment, raised all the money, found a field to play on, and we had 3 teams, 3 football teams, 3 cheerleading teams that first year. And ever since then, it's grown to a massive program, been around for over 40 years. So with that said, I'd like to honor 3 of the teams tonight. So we're going to start now with the Super Bowl winners, the varsity. And I apologize if I screw up your name. Martinez Petruska. Tucker Miller. Tom Lynch. Joseph Shelton. Tommy McAuliffe. Michael Ulawait. Abdul Goulet. Jake Wantroba. Jackson Schramm. Jacob Maziarka. Gage Faber. Julian Loaiza. Ryan McPullen. Frank D'Antonio. Monkbot Nirji. John Alfara. Thomas Starcevich. Jimmy Rolder. Jack Hardy. Matthew Hahn. Adam Zolnick. Connor Anderson. Dean Zubi. Mahmoud Salah. Max Urbis. Alex Tagler. You're missing the whole offensive line, huh? Angelo Citarella. Zachary Bowden. The guys in the 70s didn't get the memo. Kyle Peterson. Jason Walls. And for the coaches and kids, it's a lot of work to coach football, a lot of hours, a lot of time. For the coaches, Mark Micasell. John Stefanos. Mike D'Antonio. Corey McLaughlin. That's it. You guys want to say a few words? Sure.
I just want to congratulate these boys on a great season. They went 11-0, undefeated championship season. Last year they made it to the championship and lost in overtime. It's a great group of young men. A lot of them will be traveling via bus tomorrow morning to Daytona, Florida for the National Youth Football Championships, of which we are attempting as the Orland Park Pioneers to win our third consecutive national championship down in Florida. It's never been done, we've been told, and we will face very stiff competition from Florida down in that tournament. Real proud of you boys. They all have great high school futures ahead of them. They basically have the pick of what high school, Catholic League, Sandburg, they've been recruited by them all. So very proud of this group. They've been highly successful. They've actually played in 3 championship games and went out on top with an undefeated season. We're also very proud of the program as a whole. We missed out on a double overtime field goal by having all 4 teams in the championships. We did have the most teams, 3 in the championships of anybody in the River Valley, and we came out with two victories, super light and varsity, so highly successful season. Our cheerleaders, all 4 teams are competing for the state championships on December 1st in Sears Center. So very proud of the program. Great season. Congratulations, boys.
Congratulations and good luck in Florida. Congratulations. Good job.
Thank you.
So next up, we have the Super Light Widgets, who won the Super Bowl as well. So we'll Sean Ruiz. Barrett Siegel. Jack Enright. Victor Villa. Luke Seitzinger. Caden Nestor. Devin Stefanos. Taryn Lovett. Colm Coyle. Jake Drew. Mason Val. Carson Conrad. Caden Kramer. Matthew Durkin. Samuel Besorka. Aiden Evans. Nolan Rodriguez. Jordan Messino. Chase Shawanka. Todd Shelton. Ashton Brennan. Nick Slekta. Mason Marabali. Jake Tomzak. Quinn Durkin. Jack Clifton. Thomas Elliott. That was you, wasn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Brody Wantroba. Rami Aga. Tyler Winters. Keegan Kirk. Braden Zerniak. And now for the coaches. Jake Buscelli. Todd Shelton. Who's next? Chris Stefanos. Jim Rodriguez. Bill Siegel. And Pat Clifton. And Braden Nestor. Well, I want to congratulate the Widgets and then turn it over to a coach if you have anything to say.
Yeah. No, I just want to thank the city and all our parents and kids. We had a great group of people, and I wasn't expecting to speak tonight, so I got a speech for the banquet. I want to thank everybody, and we'll see you then. Thanks.
Congratulations again. Now we want to honor the Super Bowl participants, the lightweights, who also made it to the Super Bowl. Jack Fye. Caleb Michalewski. John McAuliffe. Scott Miklos. Jack Elliott. Liam Legrand. Connor Stack. Michael Purcell. Brian McBride. Brandon Dion. Hayden Weston. Beck Stukel. Kevin Glynn. Luke Basorka. Nathan Aldrich. Luke DeTample. Charles Snorick. Frank Edelin. Keenan Armstrong. Colin Worster. Okay, who are you? Jeffrey Bellick. Nicholas Coleus. Joseph Mraz. Jonathan Snyder. There's not on there. What's that? Holden Whittam. Good job. Gavin Val. Kyle Herzog. Anthony Edelin. Braden Parks. Evan Binos. Dominic Citarella. Well, we're having a tough time finding yours, but we'll make sure we get it. John, do you have his name down? Oh, there it is. Oliver Groats. Colin Ferguson. And now for the coaches. Ken Stack. Randy Gagan. Okay. Marlon Parks. Mike Citarella.
Is that boy over there on the team in the corner?
Congratulations again to the lightweights, and here you go, Coach.
I just want to thank Village of Orland Park for recognizing our program tonight, and our boys came up short this year, but that's life, and they know they're going to work harder next year. And again, I would thank you guys for all your time this year, and thanks for you guys listening to our program being presented these awards tonight. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank Again, congratulations to the lightweights. Give them a big round of applause. And thank you to all the pioneers and to all the parents and all of the coaches that put in all that hard effort. Consent agenda? Okay.
You ready?
Yep.
Consent agenda?
Does anybody have anything they'd like to take off consent? Trustee Ruzick?
I would like to remove item E from the consent agenda.
Which item was that?
E.
Item E. Anybody else? I would like to remove item K from the agenda. If there's nobody else, I'll entertain a motion to pass consent agenda without E and K.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Calandrello.
I move to approve the consent agenda from item A through O with the exception of E and K.
The motion has been put. Call the roll.
Trustee Calandrello?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick?
Aye.
Trustee Carroll? Mayor Pico?
Aye.
FY 2018 liability property insurance renewal.
Trustee Carroll.
Move to approve the property and liability. Excuse me. Move to approve the property and liability insurance carriers and premiums, as well as CCMSI's claims handling fee and Horton's annual service fee in the total amount of $810,335 as presented by the Horton Group.
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments? The question has been put as read. Call the roll.
Trustee Carroll?
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick?
Abstain.
Mayor Pico?
Aye. The motion carries 4-0.
2018 PACE agreement,
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Carroll.
ordinance number, please.
5237.
I move to pass ordinance number 5237 entitled, "An Ordinance Authorizing Execution of 2018 Paratransit Service Provider Agreement, RTA PACE."
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? So the question that I have is the subsidy here. Could you walk through what the subsidy is and if that's for both? It looks like there's a paratransit and then there's other as well. Is that for both?
I believe so. This is just an annual ordinance. We're going to bring back later on the subsidy and what we were going to pick up versus if we're going to pass some of these costs off. We're working on the analysis of that right now, but this is just so that we can enter into the agreement with them.
Okay, so this is for the agreement, but not necessarily what's budgeted for the subsidy?
That's correct.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments?
1 second.
The question is put as read. Call the roll.
Trustee Carroll?
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.
Application for funding of a multi-use path along 167th Street.
Resolution number, please.
1727.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Fenton.
move to approve the resolution number 1727 entitled Resolution Authorizing Application by the Village for the Village of Illinois, supposed to be Village of Orland Park, Illinois, for the Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program funds for multi-use path along 167th Street from Wolf Road to 104th Avenue.
Second.
Do you have any questions or comments? The motion is put as read. Call the roll.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Calangelo.
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick.
Aye.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Redevelopment agreement for the movie theater,
Ordinance number, please.
5240.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Fenton.
move to pass ordinance number 5240 entitled an ordinance authorizing a redevelopment agreement between the Village of Orland Park and the Bradford of Orland Park for LLC in regard to the movie theater development comprising a part of the Orland Park Main Street Triangle TIF District and authorizing the transfer of Title to certain real property currently owned by the Village to Bradford Orland Park for LLC in relation to thereof. Thereto.
Second.
Are there any questions? Okay, I have a couple of questions. So we have an LOI in place, correct? So why are we executing a purchase agreement now? Because my understanding is correct, there's no lease?
Is this on? Can you hear me?
No.
No.
Hello? Okay. Sorry about that. We are, before tonight's board is approval of the redevelopment agreement that sets place the deal terms that were approved in the original LOI that was approved back on March 20th of 2017. As a condition of these deal terms, there are still due diligence items that need to be completed as part of this agreement. One of those items listed in the agreement is is for Bradford to provide documentation that they have a lease signed with Sinopolis, which is the preferred developer for this piece of property, within 45 days of signing this agreement. There are other due diligence items that they must complete as well, such as their entitlements have to be put in place, as well as some environmental and some other subsequent reviews that they're going to have to do that are contained in this as well. But this does outline the deal terms. We're not going to close, obviously, until those due diligence pieces are complied with, and as well as when we get proof that they actually do have a signed lease with Sinopolis. Mr. Mayor, I would also say that I do have Jay Eck here tonight as well, who is with Bradford, and he can speak to any questions that you may have regarding the status of the lease between him and their anchor tenant, which is Sinopolis. As the board is aware that this agreement tonight is between Bradford and the village, not between the village and Sinopolis.
Correct, but we do have a provision in there that we have to approve
Yes.
the lease, correct?
Yes, they have to provide an affidavit to the village within 45 days, providing proof that they do have a signed lease with the theater. That is a requirement of their due diligence.
Okay, and I noticed the due diligence went from 180 days to 360 days. Could I ask why, since we've been on this deal for quite a while?
Actually, I believe that the original letter of intent was 365 days. We did propose to bring that down to the 180 days, but Bradford wanted to keep it at the 365 days. But the original letter of intent was for a one-year due diligence. They do not anticipate taking a whole year for the due diligence, but it was one of the original terms of the LOI.
Another question that I have is, they have submitted, correct? That they've petitioned?
Yes, they have.
So one of the things that are in there, and we've talked about this a lot, is to reimburse them if their cost is over $150 per square feet. Do we know what their cost is coming in at?
As of right now, and this has been, I was out last week, I think the last time I spoke to them, we were at $185 a square foot, approximately, knowing that the building is not completely designed yet and finalized, so we're going to continue to work with the developer and with the team to put together to drive that cost down. But you are correct, Mr. Mayor, that the condition, and that was again one of the original conditions of the letter of intent that was approved back in March, that anything over $150 a square foot, excluding fixtures and equipment and things associated with Sinopolis' responsibilities, would require a reduction in the $1 million purchase price, up to the $1 million, no more than the $1 million. However, one new deal term that was negotiated that was not part of the letter of intent was the opportunity to share in profits at the end of the project in the event that Bradford sells the asset we would then be able to recoup any lost revenue from the sale of land, or even if the sale was very advantageous, we'd actually get more than the $1 million. That was not part of the original letter of intent, but is included in this agreement tonight before you.
And so if I do the math correctly, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.5 million of incentives,
Right now.
correct? That we would be giving them based on their plans right now.
Well, I wouldn't call them incentive. I mean, the purchase price is $1 million. That was agreed upon. But you're right, the cost of the property right now, the building is coming in over $150 a square foot. And of course, we would not give more back than the $1 million. So we would never be on the hook for more than $1.5 million. It would be a max at the $1 million, the purchase price.
So we're on the hook for giving them $1.5 million, correct?
No,
It-
1
correct.
million maximum.
Okay.
Yeah. I would like to point out is the original letter of intent that was approved and the site plan included a much larger building over the entire pad. We, in order to drive the cost down and become more cost efficient, we now have a smaller pad, so we do have in the site plan an extra pad that we're able to pick up that the village will still maintain and own, and we can sell in the future as well. That provides the opportunity for additional revenue to come into the village as well, which was not contemplated again in the original letter of intent.
Are there any other questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Ruzick.
I just have a comment, Carrie. So it's my understanding that the cost is at the point it is because we've asked them to build, or we're working with them to build a very high-quality building, higher than what they otherwise would have built without.
Right. As you know, we've been working with Bradford and with the theater for a while to try to still meet the intent and the vision of the downtown. And you have the draft elevations. I made a pack. I printed out everything that was in Legistar for you guys tonight, so you have that on your desk. So you can see that it is high-end finishes for the theater as well. But we're going to continue to work collaboratively with them to try to drive the costs down as much as we can.
And we ultimately have the right to approve or disapprove the budget that they
do.
submit,
Right.
correct? Okay.
And do you have a picture of the elevation you can share up there, or no?
You know, I don't. I apologize. But I do have handouts, and we can put it on the website.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Calangelo?
Carrie, how much, so we have 7 years left of the TIF, and
But right now, we have 9.
9,
But
okay.
once this is, we project that based upon stabilization, and once this is constructed, we will have 7 years left. And the pro forma for this project is included in their handout. It was in Legistar as well.
so how much money for it's the TIF life, or is the village going to make on this deal?
I have that. Hold on, let
Take
me
your
get
time.
it. And it was included in your packet as well. For this project alone, we are projecting for the remaining life of the TIF that it will generate a little bit under $6 million, $5.948 million. For the annual increment back to the TIF, we're projecting $849,000 a year approximately. And then the proposed term of the lease that Sinopolis will have, which is a 20-year term that they are negotiating, the total impact to the village will be $16.9 million. That does not include the land value of the adjacent pad next to the theater when we sell that piece of property as well.
And what's the value of that piece of, the new?
$1 million is what Tim Blum from HSA, who is our development consultant, has suggested would be a fair price.
So $18 million, give or take, in 20 years, this piece is going to make the
Right,
village.
but for the life of the TIF, it would be about $7 million.
Thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Fenton?
The other thing with this particular building for the people in the audience is we are driving the quality of this building and the design of this building. This isn't something that they wanted to do because, trust me, developers are wonderful, but they'll do what they just have to do. So we have an idea and a vision of what we want the downtown to look like. Although we went from a 2-story building to a 1-story building, we still kept the integrity of the outside courtyard area. And so the developer is working with us, and they're doing what we want and not necessarily what they would want to do. So yes, it is costing us a little bit more per square foot, but in the end, it's what the village board sees as what should be down there and what is our recommended vision for the triangle.
Any other questions or comments? The motion is put, or the question is put as read. Call the roll.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello.
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick.
Aye.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Nay. The motion carries 4-1.
14224 Concord Drive, Hedderman Residence.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Fenton.
Okay, we can't talk about this unless I make a motion, right? Okay. There'll be a lot of discussion about this after I make the motion. Move to accept the findings of fact of these hearing officers, the findings of fact set forth in the staff report dated November 9th, 2017. And I move to approve the petition to locate the shed in the side yard for the property at 14224 Concord Drive. And I move to approve the petition to reduce the required setback from the shed from the principal building from 10 feet to 4.5 feet, a reduction of 55% for the property at 14224 Concord Drive, subject to the conditions listed below. That the petitioner complies with additional building code requirements related to fire separation between the shed and the principal building, which will include the entire shed being lined with fire suppression drywall. Is that what it's called?
That's good
Okay.
enough.
And I move to approve the petition to exceed the maximum allowed shed size of 40 square feet, an increase of 40% for the property at 14224 Concord Drive.
Second.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Fenton.
Although I have the Zoning Board of Appeals denied this request from the petitioner, and I have the utmost respect for the individuals on that board, and they were in a tough situation, just like we're in a tough situation too. We discussed this at committee, what happens when people don't get permits. And then when a neighbor calls and complains about something, the village has its responsibility to go out, check out the situation, and things have to comply with what our ordinances are. One of the things that we have found in this, within our ordinances, that possibly our shed size could be increased compared to what we currently have on the book, which is, I think, a 10 by 10. So the main reason we have a 10-foot separation between your residential dwelling and a shed is because sheds are usually made of combustible materials, and/or you may have a snow blower in there, a lawnmower, and all of those things are powered by gasoline, which is very flammable. So after speaking to the homeowners, after speaking with staff, I'm willing to go along. The homeowner has agreed to put in the fire suppression drywall throughout the entire shed. I would hope, I understand that there's multiple sheds within this area that are not in compliance. But I guess the message I would like the press to get out for us today is we have a website, although it may be challenging at times, we need to look to see what requires a permit. Because it's there for, those rules and regulations are there for a reason. It's for the health and safety of the community. It's for the preservation of what this community looks like. If we start letting things go up, and I keep using this word willy-nilly, Orland Park isn't going to look like Orland Park, what you moved here for it to look like. And it's really based on what the residents can tell us. We only have 1 full-time and 2 part-time inspectors. It's going to 2 full-time inspectors to cover this entire village. We need your help to let us know. You know, if you see somebody building something, there's no permit, just give the village a call, they'll get out there. We work with the people. We're not here to make any hardships for anyone in this village, and that's kind of where I was going with this particular case. I understand what happened, so now, hopefully, it won't happen again. So that's my little speech for tonight.
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Carroll.
I have 2 questions, and maybe staff can help me with this. I want to see if my understanding of this is correct. The first thing that I understand is that the resident claimed that they originally did get a permit, but our search of records, which may not be exhaustive, was inconclusive that they didn't have a permit. Is that correct?
We found evidence of many permits for this piece of property, but no evidence of a shed being pulled, yes.
The second understanding I have is that all of the surrounding residents came to the previous hearings in favor of granting these variances. Is that correct as well?
I would say there were many who did. I wouldn't say all, but many
Okay.
did come in, yes, in support of her.
Because I had read something in one of the earlier manager notes where there was a adjacent property owner that was opposed to it. I've since heard that that person's been made okay with this. Is that true or false?
That isn't, we are not aware of that,
Okay.
no.
All right. Because I was told something along the lines of there was a gutter system on the shed that once that was removed, they were okay with the drainage issue.
No, that was not the case.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Ruzick.
So I had looked into some of the surrounding communities, and I did find that the shed sizes are about 40 or 50% higher in some of our surrounding communities. And I also noted that the town of Naperville doesn't even require a permit for a shed this size. Again, you know, I don't think that we don't want anything to go anywhere, but I do think it would be helpful if staff would at least look at this ordinance again, because we don't need to start shed wars out there, so.
Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman? Sorry.
Trustee Fenton.
That was going to be one of my recommendations, that staff look into possibly changing the ordinance to reflect a different size shed.
Do that.
Any other questions or comments? So I've gone out and looked at the site. It's a nice-looking shed. At the same time, we do have ordinances that, that we are required to follow. I do agree that this particular ordinance may be more restrictive than it needs to be. Some examples are the size, which Trustee Ruzick mentioned. Additionally, the location as far as proximity to the building. In the event, if you want to be closer than 10 feet, if you put fire retardant material, we can include that in the ordinance. So my suggestion would be is to send this back to staff, rework the ordinance first, so that with the goal of getting this approved, but doing so within our ordinances.
It won't make a difference.
All right, so you addressed two of the three issues, so I guess we would need some additional guidance then on, from the board as it relates to the third issue, which is the placement of the shed. Right now, we require all accessory structures, whether it's a shed or a gazebo or a swimming pool or a tennis court, to be located in the rear yard, and they're not allowed to be located in the side yard. That is one of the other variances that this particular case is triggering. So obviously, the reason for that is you don't want to drive up and down our neighborhood streets and see a bunch of accessory structures that aren't in the backyard. They're more prominent from the street view. So my question to the board collectively from a policy standpoint is, do you want to continue to require accessory structures in the rear, which is pretty standard and consistent across municipalities, or do you want us to explore alternatives to that as well?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Carroll.
I personally would prefer to, I'm okay with considering these variances based on what I heard about many of the neighbors being okay with this shed, which has been in existence for quite some time, but I think the rear yard and the side setback both remain the same. I think those are reasonable. I'm with Trustee Ruzick on the size in general, as well as the proximity to the residence, as long as the mayor put it, there be fire retardant materials. But I think the side yard setback, or the sideline setback and the rear yard placement be kept in the ordinance.
I would concur.
Me too.
So if that's the case, then we would still need you to vote tonight on this particular variance specific to this piece of property.
Right.
I think we should just vote on my opinion would be just to vote on the motion that we have and then have staff go back and rework the ordinance to address the issues.
Are there any other comments or questions? The motion is put as read. Call the roll.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrella.
Aye.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Nay.
Amend Title 7, Chapter 4, Class N liquor license.
I'm getting there. Where is it? Here we go. Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Carroll.
Ordinance number, please.
5241.
Move to pass ordinance number 5241 entitled an ordinance amending Title 7, Section 7-4-6 of the Orland Park Village Code, Class N as in Nora liquor license.
Second.
Are there any comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman, could you explain this liquor license a little bit?
So this liquor license is for, right now, it's for people who have arts and entertainment classes, and they have a BYOB license, so people can come in and bring their own and have a party or whatever. What it doesn't account for, if there are entertainment venues that may want to do that, for example, we have a group that is looking to bring virtual reality gaming as an option. And one of the things they do is they do host parties where it's BYOB, so it's an adult, adult establishment. So this just kind of cleans up this ordinance to give us a little bit more, make it a little bit broader and not as narrow.
Okay.
Are there any questions or comments? The motion is put as read. Call the roll.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick.
Aye.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Village Code Amendment agenda prepared for board meetings.
Ordinance number, please.
5242.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Calandrello.
I move to pass ordinance number 5242 entitled an ordinance amending Title 1, Chapter 5, Section 1-5-1 of the Orland. Oh, sorry. Let me do it one more time so everyone can hear me this time. I move to pass ordinance number 5242 entitled an ordinance amending Title 1, Chapter 5, Section 1-5-1 of the Orland Park Village Code, meeting of the Board of Trustees.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Carroll.
Looks to me like what we have in our book is 1-5-5 is being amended, and I think
Right.
Trustee Calandrello said 1-5-1 both times.
I'll entertain a motion to amend the motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 So the motion carries 5-0 to amend the motion to, say, Section 1-5-5 of the Orland Park Village Code. Any questions or comments? So the motion to pass, what was the ordinance number?
5242.
Ordinance number 5242 entitled, an ordinance amending Title 1, Chapter 5, Section 1-5-5 of the Orland Park Village Code, agenda prepared for board meetings, is put. Call the roll.
Trustee Calandrello.
Aye.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick.
Aye.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Village Code Amendment meetings of the Board of Trustees.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Carroll.
I move to pass ordinance number 5243. Is that correct? Entitled an ordinance amending Title 1, Chapter 5, Section 1-5-1 of the Orland Park Village Code, meetings of the Board of Trustees.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Village Code Amendment standing committees.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Carroll.
move to pass ordinance number 5244, entitled an ordinance amending Title 1, Chapter 5, Section 1-5-7-14 of the Orland Park Village Code, standing committees.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello.
Aye.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
October 21st, 2017 Commission Workshop update.
So, Mr. Lamargo, we'll turn it over to you.
Yes. So, as you know, the commissions and advisory boards have been part of the legislative process in Orland Park for decades. These boards consider issues facing the village and make recommendations to the village board and committees, and eventually to the full Board of Trustees. As you recall, on October 21st, a public workshop was conducted to review the village's commissions and advisory boards. The overall theme expressed by the commission members in attendance was very positive. Many of the members have private sector business experience and professional resources. Members were asked for more collaborative. The overall theme, or what they looked for in these commissions, were that members asked for more collaboration with the village staff liaison to set more defined goals and expectations for their groups. A little bit more guidance. So
I think Joe and I will kind of tag this team a little bit. This is the process that the board discussed and the majority of the board passed. So that was done in August. We did conduct a workshop in October, and now we're on number 3, which the board reviewed and drafting. So today's goal is to take the information, and I know everyone got the packets, the binders regarding the information on not only the committee workshop, but furthermore, staff comments and the ordinance themselves. Today's goal is to have the purpose of each committee. We're not going to dive into the bylaws. We're going to have legal, make sure that we have everything for the bylaws done, so then we could properly pass this the first meeting of January. So after we're done tonight talking about what the goals and what and some of the structures of the committees will be, we'll draft that up for publication, which is the 4th point, for public review over the next month. So this way, not only will we get about the 25 members of the community input, we got staff input, and now we're going to go back out to the community, not only for people who are involved, but people who are not involved, because we had about a handful of people who weren't involved, who wanted to get involved to talk about the process. And then finally, the board approval after we get the comments, see if there's anything out there that we want to amend or adjust. And during that time, legal will make sure we get all the paperwork to follow, because that's one of the issues that a lot of people are talking about. We all agree that we should review this process, and this is what the majority of the board agreed to do. So I look forward to the comments, and next slides, next topic is going to be the overall structure of all the committees. There's been some discussion.
So I have a few questions for you, Dan, about the process. How many commissioners were at the workshop?
There was 21, I believe, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. And how many of those commissions had no attendance?
There was a handful. However, we had some responding by email, so we maybe have 1 or 2 that wasn't represented at all based on the emails or the attendance.
Okay, so my count was 6. And then how many had only 1 attendee?
You have the answer right there, Mr. Mayor, so go ahead, tell me.
Okay, so 5. All right. And just out of curiosity, how many citizens attended?
I think it was 5, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right. And some of the questions I had during the process, did the stuff that was required by law and the statutes, was that given to the group when they had these discussions so that they could have a more thorough discussion?
They had their purpose, Mr. Mayor, at least, and they also had the ability to, if they were members of it, they would have looked at the bylaws and the structure.
So was that given to them? John?
There was an overall summary that was given, but not the specific ordinance structure.
Okay.
You had that, the trustees had that in their packet.
Correct.
Workshop.
But not at the workshop. The workshop members did not have it.
Commission members.
Okay. That's what I want to know. Thanks.
So I guess the first thing that we would get a comment from the board is what kind of involvement do you want a trustee in the committee or the boards overall? I know there was discussion based on, we've been talking about this for a long time, back and forth, if trustees should be voting members, advising, or not even involved in our citizen committee. So that's the first thing that we should pull the board on and see what the basic structure should be of the committees. So I, for one, think that we should have trustees on it, but as advisors. But I'm just 1 of 7.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Carroll.
My thought is any of the committees or commissions that then would report to one of our standing board committees not have a trustee on it. So for example, we have the development services, that their committee would then, or planning commission would report to the development services committee. to avoid having a trustee, A, hear the same evidence twice, and B, have perhaps some influence over that commission or committee, I think it would be best in those instances to not have, as a general rule, a trustee on that committee or commission.
There isn't one.
Any other comments?
The Plan Commission doesn't have a trustee.
I think Parks and Rec does.
I think his point was made, not just, I mean, he was using one example.
Exactly right.
But there are other examples as well. So,
Mr. Mayor.
go ahead, Trustee Rizek?
Oh, Mr. Mayor. So my comment on trustees serving on commissions is just that perhaps it's a good idea not to have them be voting members, for sure. Whether they serve or not, I mean, I do think they bring some value, but do they bring too much value to a committee and overemphasize their importance? Do others on the commission or on that committee pay too much attention to what a trustee says? And that's not the goal of these citizen boards. So that's kind of the way I'm leaning on that issue.
I currently I sit on the Open Lands Commission. I am
Trustee Fenton.
Oops, sorry. I am a voting member, but I would have no problem with not being a voting member and being the liaison with Open Lands.
Any other comments? So my comment on that is, I have no issues with trustees being ex officio members, i.e. non-voting, like they are with the Economic Development Advisory Board, where we see it necessary or beneficial to have that board member there. I don't think under any circumstances that they should be a voting member because everything that's voted on from those eventually ends up to the board where they get a vote. So they shouldn't be getting 2 votes and undue influence, which was one of the issues, obviously, that was identified pretty early on. Interestingly enough, too, it's also, because I get an opportunity to talk to a lot of commissioners one-on-one, so I get a lot more in-depth information, and that is something that some of the board members raised with boards where the trustees sit on it, and that's not just identifying one trustee. It's saying the whole time that trustees have been on those boards, they've had undue influence, and it really makes it difficult for them to do their work.
So it sounds like everyone says advisory is fine, and again, we're not approving it in the day, we're just drafting these, so then we'll go with that, with the current, if everyone's okay with that. So this advisory is, and then when we go into the nitty-gritty of some of the ones, we could maybe make changes if needed. So I guess the second part, I think, should be this addressed. It seems like there's really no organized keeper of the records. That's one of the issues we had, is we didn't have all the bylaws or the statutes. So I'm open for suggestions. I think we just need to have one contact at one office. If that's the mayor's office, if that's the clerk's office, I leave it up to the board. I don't want to say my opinion first all the time, so I'll leave it up to the board and see what their input is.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Fenton.
Currently, the clerk's office has all of the ordinances and all the bylaws for all the commissions. And then each department has their staff liaison has the bylaws, the commission ordinances for whatever commission that they work with. So are you looking to have just one person maintain all of that, or?
It seemed like it's been an issue, and maybe do we say the deputy clerk does it, or do we say, I'm not sure what Nancy's job title is I think it'd be good to have one person, one job to do it.
Trustee Calandrello, if I can just add to that, from being the former deputy clerk, what we've tried to do when we brought Legistar in, each commission or board may have their own recording secretary, which seems to work. We have tried to, and I'd have to confirm with the clerk's office on this, but I believe that they were trying to get those minutes or information into Legistar, so it was a one-stop area for that. I don't know if every single board and commission does that. I know a lot of them do. I believe the Plan Commission does. The larger ones do. The smaller ones, I don't know, but as long as they have their own recording secretary and then they just provide and they have access to Legistar, which is easily attainable for them.
And any other comments on this issue? So I will tell you, as someone who tried to look at these ordinances, that while the clerk's office is supposed to keep them, it took me a very long time, in some cases over a month, to find some of the records and some of the laws that were applied. So that needs to be cleaned up significantly. Additionally, regarding our bylaws are actually in direct conflict with our ordinances, actually for the open lands on several, 5 or 6 different items. So that needs to be cleaned up as well, because the bylaws do not trump our ordinances.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I guess the third part is A, some of the committee do want a generic term. Most of them are 1 year, but there are 2 years out there. So A, do we want to just keep it standard on most, or standard and then alternate if we need to on just 1 year terms? And then also, do we want to keep the appointment process the current status quo?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Ruzick.
So I guess is the question, do we want to extend initial terms beyond 1 year when they're appointed?
That, I guess it's up for discussion, because there's there's about a handful of 1 year, there's about a handful of 2 years. Do you just want to make the standard 1 year and move it around? And that's just something, since we're talking about the whole process and being consistent, that's kind of what staff and I talked about tossing out there based on everyone else's input.
What did the commission members think?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Carroll.
One of the things that kind of came up in this whole commission and committee discussion was that there were a lot of commissioners that have been serving for a lot longer than the 1 year of their initial appointment without any reappointment. So if it's your plan, Mr. Mayor, to renew commission and committee appointments every year, then it seems to me that keep it cleanest is have every appointment be a year. If there's a valid reason why some of the commissions or committees have a 2-year appointment, then I suppose I'd be willing to be okay with that too. But I think one of the things that did come out of this process is there were people that have been sitting there for multiple years without any reappointments. So I think that needs to be cleaned up.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Ruzick.
So for something like the Plan Commission, I could see the value in having longer than a 1 year appointment, because that is one commission that really does a lot of, the vetting work. And I think it takes you a while to, even get familiar with what your role is. They're a very active commission. They're a very important commission. So I think to have somebody be appointed for 1 year and then gone after a year, I don't know that would serve us well.
Any other comments? So regarding this issue, because we've been at it in depth, basically what state law says is that the village president appoints the trustees, advise and consent, and it's most of our committees are 1. There are some that are 2, and there are some that are 3. Then once that term is expired, they stay there. They can either be reappointed, or they can be left there until, at which point somebody either reappoints them or replaces them. So that's kind of the process. So it never sits vacant unless they resign. So that's kind of the mayor's prerogative. And I think in the past we've never pretty much never updated anyone. And it might be impractical if we have 100 commissioners to renew everybody. But certainly if they were 2 or 3 year terms, we may want to consider, as the mayor, if there's a handful of people that have 3 year terms, I would probably consider making sure they're reappointed. But for the 1 year terms, I think it kind of just depends on the situation.
Just one point on that. I'm not advocating for changing the appointment process, but when I did my research, I don't, and maybe Ken will be able to help because I'm not an election lawyer or whatever. This law is municipal law. Is it by state statute or do we write it, Ken? For the appointment process, the advise and consent, or?
The appointment process for your commissions and advisory boards are established by your ordinance. It's in the village code. It's not by statute.
And I'm not advocating for a different process. I just wanted to know the facts. Thank you. So it seems like the board is okay with 1 term, 1 year terms, and maybe a couple of different terms for saying planning commission, depending on commissions. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Penton.
Would it be possible to, I guess when people are on commissions, the people usually that are on the commissions, let me put it this way, are very dedicated to the particular commission that they're on, and they really want to stay. So I guess my concern would be if they're on it for a year or 2 years, especially some commissions where not only Plan Commission, but there's other ones, that you have to have certain people with expertise or certain requirements to be on those commissions. If the people want to stay, I don't see any problem with them staying. I would hate to see us just start telling people you're going when they want to stay, because we're always looking for volunteers, and if these people are willing to continue to volunteer their time with that commission, I think we should let them do it unless they've done something that breaks the rules.
So you think that it's a de facto lifetime appointment once you make an appointment?
I guess I don't know, I guess if they want to stay, I mean, why rock the boat?
So if someone gets appointed to a commission, whomever that may be, they stay forever until they decide. I don't think that fits with either, the power of the board or the mayor.
Okay, I think we can move on. Okay. Thank you. You're welcome. So now we're going to get into all the different commissions itself. What's up on the slide is the current structure, a little history on the current structure of it. I guess the best way, after talking with many of you up here and also with staff, the best way to see what they're doing now and see if we want to make any changes to their duties and their responsibilities, and then if there is some, make the changes so we can publish the changes. If not, say, move on. So go ahead, Joe, you can just briefly talk about the Civic Center.
Yeah, so here we have the Civic Center. It was established in the mid-'80s. There's 6 board members, and as you see, it oversees the operation of the Civic Center. The Civic Center was created per state statute. So it's pretty set in, because it's created by state statute. It's really not much we can do to change any of these, the duties. Am I correct with that, Ken?
Correct. Yeah, what I was talking about the appointment powers, I'm talking about the ones that are not statutory. There are statutory boards, such as the 911 Telecommunications Board. There's the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners, Civic Center Authority. There is specific state statute regarding appointments there. What I was talking about were the appointments of commissions and advisory boards created by the ordinance.
There's not much we can, Civic Center Board is set by state statute, so there's no objections. I'll move on to the next one.
So one question I have is that our ordinance does not tie with the state statute, so it's not the same.
Right.
So we need to make sure that's cleaned up. And then also, we have someone here from that board to speak as well. So, Mr. Urbanski, might as well let them speak while their board is up.
Mayor, trustees. Yeah, I am a member of the Civic Center Authority Board and a commission, and I was just here to talk about the community workshop versus the ad hoc committee. I wasn't able to attend the community workshop. I was out of town, and by the time I got back, I already had plans for that Saturday. And although it seemed like a good idea, it just seems that's a lot of people to get together all at once, where the ad hoc committee would be something that could be more tailored to the time and the amount of people that, can meet at one time. You'd get a better response, I think. And of course, I read in the paper that there wasn't a very large turnout at the community workshop, although it seems a lot of information was gotten for what was there. All I'm here to really ask for is that I think, is the community workshop going to be continued on a monthly, bi-monthly, any kind of schedule, or is this the only one?
Do you want me to answer that, Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Calangelo.
Well, the workshop that was put up in October, that's just going to be a one-time thing. However, first of all, did you get a survey that was sent out to all the commission members?
I saw the survey, but I thought it was to be answered at the workshop, and that's why I didn't answer it separately. Although we did have representation there by Dennis.
Well, I mean, maybe it wasn't as worded as directed as it should have been, but a lot of people sent in information. So, and if you still want to, after we're done with what we're talking here, and thank you for coming, and thank you for telling your issues, we're going to publish this, and then if you think we did something wrong, or you're an idiot for doing this, you tell us, and we can maybe incorporate in the changing. So this open dialogue, this open, transparent process of this dialogue is not over today, but we're not going to hold another workshop like we did.
Is there a reason that an ad hoc committee can't be instituted that would work over a long period of time to work with individual groups? Because one of the things that I felt is that we need dialogue, as a Civic Center Authority Board, between the village and us. And in a lot of cases, even though we have a representative from the village on the board, sometimes some of that information doesn't really get implemented, or we have problems with getting a website, for example. It seems no matter who we talked to, and Kathy was part of our board, back in here, we were working so hard we still don't have a website. And we can, maybe with an ad hoc committee, we can really focus in on these problems, only because it'd be more personal. It's just my thought.
And thank you for that thought. I think the key thing is what we're doing here is giving you the structure to succeed. So a lot of people had those comments about issues that there wasn't a website for the Civic Center, there's not a website for the History Museum. Completely get that. And I think building a better structure so you know who to report to and staff knows who to go to, that's what we're doing here today. So I appreciate your comment, and I think we're moving towards getting what you guys need, because you guys want to make us successful. So I don't want to get off on a tangent, but I appreciate your comment.
Well, I guess that's really about it, but unless I have any questions for me.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Carroll.
Mr. Urbanski, just so I can kind of frame where you're coming from on this, how long have you been on the Civic Center Commission?
Very long, probably more than 10 years.
Okay. Because you did have representation there, like you said, Mr. Ryan, who I believe is your chairman, and then also Cindy Kelly, the staffer. They were both there, as well as a member of our staff helping. But yeah, it's some good points that we are working through.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Next one, we have the Community Relations Commission, which was created back in '91. It's got 5 members who are residents, and of course, appointed by the president and with the advice and consent of the trustees. However, with this one, there are some specific requirements. At least 3 of the members shall be, if possible, individuals with a disability. The members are appointed for a 1-year term that begin on the first Monday of June. And then there are the duties.
So just to kind of give a little background on this, and it should be in your packets, this was created by the board in '91, right after the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed. I think I wasn't on the board in '92. I'm at.
You're fine.
I think a couple people might have been that's up here, but that's what it seemed like talking to staff and talking to others about what this was to help the village transition the American Disability back, which is great. So I don't want to take my opinion because I'm just one of 7, but it hasn't been in a long, long time. We have a professional staff. I would love to say the last 15, 20, 30 years, our staff has been tuned to these issues, and that's, I think I just voiced my opinion.
Right. If I could just add something from a staff perspective, this commission was originally, I believe, in the mayor's office for a period of years when it was first created, again, before my time as well. And then it's transitioned over to the development services probably, I want to say, 7 or 8 years ago. But as Trustee Condrell had mentioned, this commission has not met since the transition to development services, because when we get a complaint now, whether it's from a resident or a visitor to Orland Park or a business, and the complaint is focused on accessibility issues, whether it's through the American Disabilities Act or the Illinois Accessibility Code, which we follow. We handle those through our staff and through our licensed architects and our building inspectors. And we address those in conjunction with the current codes are. We also have a transition ADA plan that the board is aware of, where those areas that are not completely in compliance, we have a plan to get into compliance over many years, and that plan has been approved by the federal government. We also work with the Department of Justice as well, because it is the Department of Justice that oversees the enforcement of the ADA, America's Disabilities Act. And when they get a complaint, they forward those to my department as well. And then we had one actually last year as an example, where the Department of Justice came in and we met with them to address the complaint that we received. So in this particular commission, I don't know, unless the board desires to expand the role, I don't really feel that this is a commission that needs to continue to exist, because we have identified and addressed the issues, and we have a mechanism to continue to address those issues as they come in and we receive them, as well as whenever we do a new road construction project. As you all know, we're required to comply with those codes now, whether they're state or federal, as well as any buildings that are built as well. They're naturally have evolved into our enforcement and our codes over time.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Carroll.
This is one of those committees or commissions that I think when the mayor was pointing out there were several or a handful of commissions or committees that didn't show up to the workshop. Well, we expected that, because there are a handful of committees or commissions that haven't met in a number of years, this being one of them. Keep in mind when we talk, one of the preface comments that Trustee Calendrell made and Mr. Lamargo made is our commissions have been with the village for decades. Decades ago, when I was a young employee of this village was not staffed to the extent it is now. So a lot of these things, this will be the first of one of those commissions where I'll recommend that we disband it, because we now have whole sections of our staff that are dedicated to this. The Parking and Traffic Advisory Board is another one that, unless we want to change its duties and functions, we didn't have a traffic division within the police department when that was formed. We do now. So when a citizen calls and complains, it immediately gets forwarded to currently Lieutenant Hottinger, and his staff work out the problem long before it would ever get to PTAB. So there are some commissions that, because of the very nature of the growth of the village, the expansion of our services, I don't think we need them anymore. Not that the duties aren't important, but they're met through our staff. And so I would make the recommendation that we disband this particular commission.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Fenton.
I would concur with that. This would be one that was I was on the board when this one was created. It had a purpose at the time, but now staff is more than capable of handling the situations that come up.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Ruzick.
So my only question is, has anyone spoken to the members of this commission and asked them? I'm sure they would agree, but has anyone spoken with them?
I haven't personally. I'm not sure if there's even members on the committee.
So there are members of this commission, and I have not spoke to them. I mean, based on everything we know, I would tend to agree, but following some of the same logic of they haven't met in a long time, we wouldn't have an Economic Development Advisory Board, because we completely changed that in what it was doing. So we did keep that in place, and they've been very useful. In just 3 months, they've done a lot. So I would want to speak to the individual commission members to see if they had any ideas about how to make it more useful. Maybe they say it's time to go before we pull the trigger and actually cut something off when we haven't actually spoken to a single person who's on it.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Carroll.
If we know that there are identified members, I'm assuming they got the same emails or letters that we sent to the other commissioners?
That's correct.
And we haven't received any responses from them? I'll continue my recommendation to disband it.
And so it seems like there's the majority says disband it, but maybe we'll reach out to those members to see if we missed anything. Again, another open, transparent process. We'll see if someone will call us and say you're an idiot and we should do this. So we'll see. We'll go from there. Go ahead, Joe.
Mr. Lamargo.
Yes, yes.
Go ahead.
Next one. This is the Economic Development Advisory Board.
I recommend we pass this over, since we just redid the whole thing.
I agree.
And it's been meeting.
I agree.
Electrical Commission. once again, established in 1966. And it is 5 members appointed. That's before my time. Same way, appointed by the president and advice and consent of the board. This has some specific requirements. One of the 4 members, sorry, I don't have my glasses on, so I apologize about that. One shall be a registered professional engineer, 1 electrical contractor, 1 a journeyman electrician, and 1 a full-time fire inspector employed by the Fire Protection District, having territory within the village.
So before we get into this, we actually had a very, very detailed discussion at committee day with Mr. Coleman, and I learned a lot during it. I don't know if he wants to give a brief synopsis of if they actually just met and talked about things. So I learned from it. Kathy was there, but I think the other side of the board probably wants to get a little more detailed before we talk about it. That's if Mike's okay with it. I didn't know if you expected me to talk today, so.
No, that's okay. Thank you. The Electrical Commission was established to create and enforce and interpret the NFPA 70 electrical code. We meet once, sometimes twice, or as needed to go over possible code solutions and interpretations. Each one of these members is an actual practicing electrician, electrical engineer, journeyman electrician, and a contractor, and a full-time fire inspector. So basically what we do is we listen from every practical side of the field and get their interpretation of what we're asking for. I gather the information along with my inspector, Mr. Edward Lark, and we go through all of the information and we make a decision based on that. So it's a very good commission. They're very helpful. There's been times where I've called them on just to ask a particular question on an interpretation, and they have been very responsive.
Also, we oversee the electrician's test. We provide that as a service to the contractors in the Chicago region. We offer the test. If they pass the test, then they get to use that license for other communities as well throughout the Chicago region. And this commission is involved in the testing and the preparation of that test that we administer as well.
And were there any members of this at the workshop?
No.
We did get a response by a member. I think the chairman of the committee. It's in our packets.
So we got 1 response out of 5. Any other questions or comments? I have none. We don't have enough information to really have any questions on it.
I think we should keep it. I think we not a lot of information about it. I don't think, unless any of the board's members speak up, I think we should keep it and move on and see if we have any comments from the public.
Agreed.
Okay. The next one is the Board of Fire and Police Board, and that, once again, that's statutory. So it's set by statute. There's not much we can do on this. If there's no objections, I'll move on to the next item.
That's fine.
Same thing with the Joint Emergency Telephone System Board, the 911 Board. Once again, with the permission of the board, I'd like to move on to the next one. Museum Development and Advisory Board. This is a recent board that was established just back in 2015. And this is a 7-member board, consistent with the others about appointment by the mayor and confirmation by the Board of Trustees. And this one, we have 2-year terms until their respective successors have been appointed.
Do you know how many times they meet? Is it once a month?
I believe it's once a month.
Well, since the current ordinance has the 2-year, I guess, terms, that's probably something we should all talk about, if we should make it this the exception or continue with our standard. So I think we should keep it to 1-year terms, so keep it standard, unless 1-year terms is to keep it standard with everything else. But again, one opinion of 7. So it's pretty new and it's been very active, in my opinion.
Yeah, they have been very active.
Are there any comments on the museum board?
Mr. Chairman? I would agree with Trustee Calangelo, just for purposes of the ordinance, keep it consistent at 1 year. I think maybe the 2 years because it was brand new. But to your point, Mr. Mayor, not that you'd have to renew them every year. If they're doing a good job and you want to keep them, great. If you want to replace them, great. But that way it just cleans up the ordinance.
Any other questions or comments? I think we're going to have one comment from the floor as well. So I have a couple of questions about this. Was there any discussion in the workshop about more coordination between the museum board and other boards, like Parks and Rec, Stowwagon Farm, Open Lands? Was there any discussion about that whatsoever?
I was not, unfortunately, I was not at that
So
meeting, I'll have to
that's
defer
come up
to-
a little bit, a few times with individual board members. And then also, the ordinance in this case indicates that a person does not need to be a resident to be on the commission as well. So at least from what I read. So, and then I believe we have someone that wants to speak.
Hi, everybody. Hi. My name's Diane Shin. I'm on the Museum Development Advisory Board. And I want to make clear before I say another word that I am not speaking for the board. I'm speaking for myself tonight. First of all, I want to thank you for going through this painstaking process. It's kind of, long and drawn out, but I think we all appreciate that you care enough to do it, and that you've asked for input from the members of the different boards and commissions. That's really nice, especially at a time when I kind of feel if you try to contact your local or your federal officials, it's kind of useless, but your local officials are still close to you and listen to you, and I like that a lot, so thank you. I do want to say that I thought, Keith, that we could have 2 members of this museum board who are not residents of the village. It doesn't say that there, though. I thought it said so somewhere.
It does in the ordinance. It says that one person does not does not need to be a resident on the commission.
Yeah, because we thought, the reason behind that is we thought Orland Township, there's still some unincorporated areas, and that it's all one big piece of history. But right now, all the members are residents. What I really wanted to say, besides thanking you all, is to talk a little bit about this process and the ad hoc committee process. I'm not saying or, I'm saying and. I think the workshop was really worthwhile. I was there, as you know. Did you turn in your money for your membership?
I have my allowance for my wife. I think I have the $10 now.
I'll accept it tonight. We'd like you all to be members of the museum. I'm pitching. Carol, you are. You are, Kathy. That's right. The mayor is.
Mike, are you one yet? I got him.
Okay, I'm coming up to get it right now.
There we go.
You have a family membership.
Note that Chairman Chin just took $10 from Trustee Calangelo.
I want a written receipt.
Don't tell my wife, please, all right?
We'll mail
Please,
you
on
your
record.
receipt tomorrow. You'll get your email.
It's in the minutes.
I take care of the museum.
It was a 10, right?
It was a 20.
Oh, it was a 20. It was a family membership.
Family
Okay, so we got a
membership.
family
Trustee
membership.
Carroll. I was going to pay for Trustee Carroll, but
Oh, look at that.
Oh, no. You bought a family membership. Okay, now we have to get serious. Because while I thought the workshop was a
Get it
good
on camera.
experience, and I really learned something, I really did. First of all, I learned how many commissions and boards there were. I was kind of gobsmacked by that. I had no idea how many people were involved. However, it is true, there weren't enough people there. And I think it's because it was a Saturday morning and everybody's running their kids around and doing whatever they have to do on Saturday morning. So that was a bit of a problem. The other problem I saw there was that the input was very broad, but not very deep. And I was thinking, this is a good process, but if we also had an ad hoc committee that was just temporary and could focus in a concentrated way on each of the commissions that survived this process, we might get more out of it. not only would your future decisions be better informed by more concentrated and focused input, but I think our boards would get some ideas on how to be more effective. And I know, I'm not speaking for the board, but I would bet just about anything I have that every member of the museum board would welcome any suggestions for us becoming more effective. Though I think we do a pretty good job right now. I'm really proud of our board. Even though it's a new board, we do a lot. We meet every month, except December when we take off. I just think if you get better input and we get better ideas, it will work to your advantage, to our advantage, and to the advantage of the whole village. That's just what I think. So thank you very much again for asking. Thank you for caring. I really appreciate the chance to talk to you tonight. Thanks a lot.
Here, Diane, this is from my family.
Is that a 20?
That's a 20. Yeah.
We'll get that in the minutes too, so you don't need a receipt.
Mr. Mayor, to response to your one question, we did get some input from the museum board, and one of them was to continue the work with the Village Public Information Office and the Parks and Recreation Department with both social media and traditional media marketing.
Yeah, one of the things that's come up from talking to the museum board is potentially the need to coordinate with the other boards and look at things more holistically across all the boards. You want to move on to the next one?
Open Lands Fund Commission. This is a 501c3 commission, and then it's comprised of 7 members appointed by the president with the advice and consent of the Board of Trustees. All members serve one-year terms, same dates as the other ones. And then there are the duties of the commission.
Before we get into discussion, I think a lot of people don't understand that there's almost kind of 2 boards together. Maybe Carrie, I know you deal with this a lot, because there's a 501c3 and then there's also a Village of Orland Park Commission. So I think sometimes we get distracted by the 2 or get confused. So maybe Carrie just kind of shed some light on that.
Yeah, there is the Open Lands Commission, which is set by Village Code Ordinance, and then there is the Open Lands Foundation, which is the 501c3, which what has the ability, they're a separate board, they have the ability to raise funds, they have ability to solicit grants, and they have the ability to accept donations on behalf of the foundation. The commission and the foundation have been mirror images of each other since they were created. So whoever members sit on the foundation are the same commission, are the same members of the commission. That's not something that's required by the village code, but this is the way it's been, has occurred over the time. The foundation was the one who would go out and solicit acquisition of properties based upon the approved referendum to purchase open lands throughout the past, since 1995 when they were created. They would then purchase the acquisition of the property through the foundation, but then they would then deed that property from the foundation to the Village of Orland Park. So the foundation itself does not hold title to any of the open lands property that's located within the village. It's all held in title by the Village of Orland Park, but that was the process by which they acquired it. As the village board knows, the referendum bond proceeds will be expended this year with the remaining allocation to the Nature Center. So there won't be any additional referendum funds to be expended. However, the foundation can still go out and apply for grants, and they can also accept donations on behalf of the foundation as well.
So just to put a topic up there for discussion is how do we, and then we have a couple 501c3s, how do we as a village board versus a 501c3, because it's its own living beast.
It is. It's a separate entity. It has a separate auditing. It has a separate financial accounting practices, everything. So it is handled, even though it's part of the village, everything is segregated separately. Their own accounts, everything are segregated.
Also their own government process.
Yes,
So
they have their own
technically
bylaws that are adopted by the foundation as well.
So they can pick their own president, even though, say,
Yes.
that this board wanted A to be president.
Yes.
They could pick C.
Yeah. Same thing with the Stellwagen Foundation as well.
So I think that's something we need to discuss overall, is how do we deal with that as a board? But and that's, I guess, again, I'm one of 7, so I'm just tossing it up for everyone to discuss.
Any other questions or comments? So the bylaws are definitely in big-time conflict with our ordinances. They definitely don't match.
Right.
And they should. Did anyone in this conversation with Open Lands, did they talk about the need to kind of shift some of their responsibility away from this acquisition of land and start to focus on stewardship? We have some people on there that know a lot about stewardship, and every time I meet with them, they talk about acquiring, and they don't really talk about stewardship at all.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Carroll.
There was some discussion there were 2 things that came up kind of consistently from that table. One was the stewardship issue, the other one was the fundraising issue, to be more of an autonomous
Right.
body and paying for its own stewardship and maintenance of the property. So those were 2 things that they appeared to be pretty acutely aware of.
Any other comments?
So I guess the first thing is...
Trustee Calendro.
Thank you. I think maybe the board wants to make sure we put an accent in the future for the village that it's more, that stewardship should be a priority. I guess there's really no comment, we just let the 501c3 kind of live by itself, but technically speaking, the bylaws could be different from the 501c3 than a village bylaws. That's just the law. So that's just something we gotta toss out there, that we're okay with the possibility to have a completely different open land Village of Orland Park versus a completely different 501c3 unless we want to succeed power to that, which just try and get discussion by the board, because at the end of the day, we're going to be deciding this.
From a staff recommendation, I would recommend that they mirror each other. It's less confusing.
Right.
And it's easier for staff as well. My department provides the staffing for this commission as well as Stellwagen. And I think from a perspective of having separate members on the commission with separate members on the foundation, that's going to be twice as much work for my staff to manage and staff and do minutes for, and all the staff support resources that we allocate to these commissions, which is significant. Because then you'd have to have 2 separate meetings, and right now they function, when they meet as a commission, they're also meeting as they're one and the same as the foundation.
And we have to audit them as well, our finance
We do.
department.
We
And
do
one of the
every
issues
year.
we have with our 501(c)(3)s as well is they're not autonomous. They don't raise their, I mean, a lot of the support comes from the village. So I
Right.
think as long as we are supporting them, then we should be making sure that the bylaws match with whatever we think the ordinance should be. If they want to start their own 501(c) that they self-support, that's a whole nother animal, and then they should do whatever they want.
The village board does offer a subsidy to them out of the general fund every year to pay for those costs, such as the audit fees and other associated fees as well.
So it sounds like the board just wants to make same bylaws and just kind of know that there's kind of 2 shadow, there's a board and a shadow. We can move on to the next one, but one issue that we didn't talk about on the museum development, and I don't want to miss topics, is there was non-residents in the bylaws for the museum board. I'm okay with having 1 slot as it currently is, but that's not the standard, so I want to make sure everyone's okay with having 1 non-resident before we move on. I'm sorry.
I understand if it's a township, and we could probably clarify and say it's a non-resident from within Orland Township.
That's one topic out there we needed to address, and we didn't, so
Trustee
I'm okay with
Fenton.
it.
Whether it's one member, or if it doesn't matter and we can add within the township, we could.
I think it should be just 1,
Yeah,
not the rest of them.
I would agree.
But the
No.
museum board also has a foundation, too.
So I guess maybe, Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Calendro.
I guess since we have a couple of foundations out there, maybe, again, 1 of 7, are moving forward is all 501c3s bylaws have to match. So while legally it's 2 bodies, it's 1 body moving together. That's 1 of 7 opinions.
I think the attorney has to do it, and the attorney's the one that wrote them.
And that's what legal will be doing, but that's just 1 of 7, so. Mike, do you agree with that?
I do. I mean, that's not unusual. The Lions Club with which I belong, they have the Orland Park Lions Club, and they have the Orland Park Lions Charitable Foundation, and it's just 501c3. It's the same group of individuals that are members of both. It's just that one allows us to receive charitable donations, whereas the other does not. So it's not uncommon.
Move forward.
Yes. Please.
Then we have the Parking and Traffic Advisory Board, also known as PTAB. This one was established in '82. There are 8 members on the board, and they serve one-year terms, and they meet at least once a month.
Mr. Chairman,
Duties.
Trustee Fenton?
do we know when the last time they met?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Mr. Chairman?
I don't think they've met in a long time.
Trustee Carroll?
I believe they did tell us that they met, but the consistent comment that we were getting from that table was that they felt like they were almost irrelevant, because anytime they had a concern from one of their members or from a member of the public, the police department got to it before they even got a chance to meet. And it's, again, one of those things that it goes back since 1982, when I think a couple of our trustees weren't even, one of our trustees wasn't even alive. We didn't have a traffic division within the police department, and this committee did do a lot back then. But they would meet and talk about putting a stop sign in front of Mr. Jones's house, or change the speed limit sign on Miss Smith Street. Now we have a whole division of the police department that anytime there's a citizen complaint, they have a traffic detail assigned to that. They put the smart unit trailers out there with the radar guns, and they handle this stuff immediately. So it's one of those things that unless we want to change the duties or the charter, I just recommend we disband it, because it's not fair to those men and women on the commission or the board, the advisory board, to have to meet on something that's already being handled by the police department.
How many members were at that?
There were just
I think it was just one, but maybe I could be wrong.
we had 2.
2? Okay, great. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Calandrello?
I agree with Trustee Carroll. They do some work, but however, and it was me, I wasn't live at that time, just in case you were guessing. However, I think our professional police staff is handling it, and there's other ways we can do it. I think the key thing is we're not cutting Mary Jo from the committee. We're just, they can be on other committees. And furthermore, I think wasting their time for appointing for nothing, it wastes a resource. So it's not like we're cutting Mary Jo from, I don't know if that's Mary Jo on that committee, but I think that's one thing that we don't want to waste their time as a village board. They want to be involved. Let's get them involved and get them active. I think that's one of the reasons why some of these committees are lackluster, because they don't have the workload to excite them. And I want to excite them. That's why we have this process.
I know that one of the, and all the comments are in your books, but one of the comments there was to let the public know that they're there, do a little bit more better in publicizing them and what they're there for.
So it's kind of similar for me. I'd be, I wouldn't vote to disband, although I have no problems getting rid of commissions. I think we need to make sure we talk to the individuals first, and probably talk to the chief and others in the police force first before we make that decision.
And I think the chief has made comments that he doesn't believe this is a committee that needs to be needs to be available anymore.
Any other comments? Next.
Plan Commission, established 1955. Seven members. We're all very familiar with this commission. And any comments?
I know this is a statutory one, so maybe we don't have much, but I do know there's somebody somebody from the Planning Commission here to speak. I forgot to have our ED board person speak as well, so I'll let him go. So, if you'd like, Lou Stevens, would like to come up. Yes, if you want.
My name is Lou Stevens. I'm on your Plan Commission. I've been on your Plan Commission for 16 years. I've been your chairman for 11 years. I would like to commend Trustee Calandrello and the other trustees for reaching out to all the committee volunteers and staff for the Saturday morning meeting. I attended that meeting, and I was surprised at such a poor attendance, having less than 20% of all committee members present. In theory, it really was a good idea. However, in practice, it was an effort in futility. As a matter of good government, it's a good idea to occasionally revisit current standing committees to determine what committees should remain and which are no longer necessary, and which committees may require reappointment of its members. After 5 months of discussion and completion of the recent committee's meeting, I would like to encourage the trustees that it may be time to move forward to create an ad hoc committee to analyze and make final recommendations to the Board of Trustees and move beyond this discussion so the village can begin to move forward with more important business. I thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I thank you, trustees, for the opportunity of allowing me to speak my thoughts openly on this matter. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on the Plan Commission?
And just to make the Plan Commission, it's not by statute required, it's just we use it to fulfill a statutory requirement. So technically speaking, we can change this, but we use it as a statutory requirement, or to get through the statutory requirement. So just so the board knows that we could make tweaks if we wanted to. But it sounds like we don't.
So one thing with the Planning Commission, did it ever come up, either the planning or the zoning, which is the next one, that we might be better served to collapse the two together? I'm not sure if that's the best thing to do or not. I know there's differences of opinion on that, but it'd behoove us to talk to all of the board members to get their thoughts on it. Also, from the Planning Commission actually had a very good, that had, I think, the highest turnout. It had 3 people there, so they had the best discussion. Even though it was only 3 out of 7, they still had a pretty good discussion. And one of the things that they asked for a way that they operate, was to get their packets a few days sooner, which would make it easier for them to review, so they weren't jammed Friday through Monday working on their packets.
And one of the reasons why zoning right next to Plan Commission is, to your point, Mr. Mayor, Trustee Calandrello had.
Again, this is the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's not required by statute, but we use it to fulfill statutory requirements. Again, I'm one of 7. Some of the members, like the mayor, agree with the mayor. I think we should collapse it into the Planning Commission, because the Zoning Board does a lot of the same work. One's existing, one's new development. So I'm one of 7. I agree we should collapse it into the Planning Commission.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Carroll.
Could I inquire of Assistant Village Manager Freiling? I know we had one tonight where we had to review the findings of the Zoning Board of Appeals, but how often do they actually have a hearing?
A request for a variance?
Yeah, that goes to the ZBA.
I would say a handful of times a year, not very often, maybe 4 or 5 a year, if that. The difference between the ZBA and the Planning Commission is the ZBA deals with single residential lots, as the Planning Commission deals with larger development projects like subdivisions and approvals related to that. The ZBA also has final authority on variances in specific categories where they're not triggering more than a 25% variance. Their decision is final. And it also can be reviewed under the court system as well, as ZBA does. The Planning Commission has no final authority whatsoever. All the recommendations are advisory to the village board.
Well, my recommendation then will be to leave them separate. I think that the duties of the two are significantly different enough, especially when we talk about hearing officers and the fact that there's potential administrative review. That's a lot for a lay person to have to keep in. If there's 4 or 5 a year, if you were saying 1 or 2 a year, then I might be okay with keeping it with the Planning Commission. We know the Planning Commission is very busy in this village. To have the ZBA duties also fold into that same group of men and women, I think is unduly cumbersome. I think we should keep it separate.
Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor, since we have a member from the Planning Commission, do you mind if we ask what his opinion is of?
Sure, Mr. Stevens, what's your opinion on that? Combining them or keeping them separate? Okay. And you know, based on one opinion, that sounds like that's the right thing to do, but I think it probably would behoove us to hear from, what, we have 12 members total?
Right, and he's the chairman, and we'll publish it to everyone, so any of us can reach out to every member of that planning commission. So I guess based on the recommendation of the chairman of, what, 11 years, Lou? 16 years? Let's just, okay, 16 member, 11 for chair. I think we should probably keep it unless we hear differently. Unless, I mean, sounds like that's what the majority of the board wants. It's separate, at least three, I'm not sure, but people were missing. And the mayor said no.
Well, we'll, you know, for all of these things, this is a discussion. This isn't a decision tonight, as I recall. So we'll make those notes for later.
We have the Public Arts Commission, established back in 2001. It's 9 members, appointed by the president and then vice executive board. And members of the Board of Trustees may submit named candidates to the president. Members are appointed for 1-year terms. And those are the duties and the guidelines.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Carroll.
Can I ask Mr. Lamargo, is this one of those committees that hadn't met in a while, if I remember correctly?
Correct.
And was it also one that we didn't get any responses from the current members?
We did not get any responses, and they were a no-show. However, staff will say that they meet on a regular basis.
Well, they do meet.
They do meet.
Okay.
They do meet because they just put on a show at the
Cultural Arts.
Yeah, the Cultural Arts Center about a month ago.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Fenn.
Aren't there a lot of openings on this particular commission? I'm thinking maybe 9 members might be too many.
There are a fair number of openings. Some things that have been talked about by various commission members is, you know, is this one of those things that might make sense to fold together with something else and be a subcommittee on a commission? But that's, you know, I'd prefer to talk to the boards of those various, board members of those various boards to get their thoughts on that.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Calandrello.
What are some, I mean, did you have any ideas of what, I mean, you're here all day. Did you talk to any of the members and ask the opinion of that?
So I've talked to various members of both Parks and Rec. I've talked to the museum. I've talked to the public arts, and that there seems to be, you know, on the public arts, there's not a lot of participation, but there's some people that participate quite a bit. So it may make sense to fold that in with our Parks and Rec in some way. But I think the Parks and Rec Board has a lot of changes that probably need to be made to it. And that could possibly be one of them. I don't know if that's the right one to make or not.
So if I may, Mr. Mayor, why don't we tentatively say that we might fold this into Park and Rec, so when we publish it to the public and get an open comment, we're going to be able to take this document to everyone around. So I think that might be a good thing just to kind of spur that conversation, since you brought it up, and I agree with you. And I'm not sure what the other members of our trustees, but again, that's 2 of 7. So unless I hear any objection, I think we should put that out there and see what happens.
Any other comments? All right, moving on.
Recreation and Parks Advisory Board. Again, this was established in 1981. It is a 9-member committee. 7 of those members shall be persons 18 years of age or over.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Carroll.
I think you already alluded to this. This is probably one of those advisory boards that do need a lot of work, or does need a lot of work, especially when I looked at the recommendations of our director, combined with the conversation we just had about arts. Maybe we form it into a whole new advisory board, Parks, Recreation, and Arts. But I think Director Flores had made the mention in her comments, something along the lines that it's her opinion there was no value added from this board, or something to that effect. And combining that with the frustration level we heard at the workshop, I think we need to kind of change maybe the charter or the duties, or, like you said, Mr. Mayor, fold another advisory board into this one to make it a little bit more meaningful. Otherwise, we're wasting those fine volunteers' time.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Riddick.
Since there's several openings on the Public Arts Commission, correct?
There are.
Yeah, so that, it might make sense to combine these two.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Calandrello.
I think one of the things that and a lot of the Park and Rec, and some new people from Park and Rec was there, or who were interested in that, is that there's really no mechanism for them to come to the board or also to make recommendations. For myself, the incoming chair of Park and Recs, we're making a lot of hard decisions regarding programming because of budgetary cuts, and also about improving facilities. So I think one new defined thing instead of should be advising the board on programming choices, and also advising the board on possible improvements to facilities, recreational facilities, also commenting about programming. I might have just repeated myself. I think there need to be given some strong things to do, because at the end of the day, we're only 7 up here. The board is bigger, and we only have 7 opinions. I also really like that there's members of teenagers, and I actually think we should tweak it even more. So I guess distinctly, I would like to hear the board's opinion. Again, I'm only one of 7. That would they be okay with opening their duties to be recommendations for programming, and also field improvements or field investment? I guess that's the first thing I'd see if the board's okay with.
I think there's a lot of things that need to be changed about the roles and responsibilities on this board, much like the Economic Development Advisory Board. I can tell you the process that I undertook with that was to talk to all of the EDAB board members to get their perspectives, and then a significant amount of research as well. And I think the Recreation Board is one of those. Those ideas are good. I think there's potentially more. I think they can definitely help us with, even some of the pressing issues we've had currently. We probably could have leaned on the board to help with. There's programming issues. There's, concerts. There's the turkey trot. There's all of these different things that the Recreation Board can do. The Recreation Board, I think back in the day, actually is the one that originally developed our model for how we allocate fields. So they actually took that, they said, hey, we need to figure this out. They gave it to the board, and that's what they ran with. We're doing some similar things with the Economic Development Advisory Board. So I think this is a good board, but it needs a pretty significant overhaul. Depending on how many responsibilities you put on it, maybe it should have public arts, maybe it shouldn't have public arts. I don't know, what the, should there be an arts and museum? Those are the kinds of ideas. I know Diane just about fell off her chair when I said that, but those are, these are just ideas. They're not, certainly not set in stone, but to get people's ideas on that kind of stuff would be.
So I guess with permission of the board, it seems like this is the point of getting ideas out there, to publish it for the transparent, open process. So everyone's okay, and if you guys that are talking about expanding their duties to help recommend field improvements or field conditions, programming suggestions. Also, it seems like, and I agree with the mayor, maybe the concerts, or to help push the Tangle West. That's what it sounds like. Also, I guess, so if there's no comment with that, the second part is this is a little bit different with requiring 2 teenagers on the board. I think that's great. I also think we should require 1 member having children in the school systems. So I tossed that up. Again, I'm only one of 7, so I think we should change the 2, so 1 teenager and then 1 resident who has children in the school system.
I think you mean the younger resident.
No, you could be 60 and have kids in the school system.
So historically, just looking back at the records, it's been a challenge having teenagers on the committee, because they grow up and they go to college, and it's been difficult to find fillers for those. That's been a historical problem. If you go back, we haven't had teenagers on it for a very long time. For how long? 3 years?
That was the last information I was given, 3 years. It's been at least 3 years or longer.
Okay.
So do you recommend taking it out, Mr. Mayor?
Again, I haven't spoke to all of the Parks and Rec members. I've spoken to 2, I think. I would rather talk to all of them, just like I said, just like I did with the EDAB, to get their perspectives. It's hard. I mean, they're working on this. They're the ones that are frustrated by, some of them are the ones that are frustrated by the lack of, lack of real work to do. So I think getting their perspective is quite helpful. And I don't think we've, how many responses? Like 3, I think, maybe, total? Between the workshop, two?
And how many did the survey? I just want to volunteer.
Just the chairman.
And he was also there, so.
So I guess since no one else is piping up, I guess we could put it out there again. Another, someone with children in the school should be a 1 member, unless anyone has objection to that. Thanks, Carol. Carol said it's good. All right.
Any other questions or comments?
Oh, sorry. I'm going to go back.
No, go ahead.
We have the Senior Citizens Advisory Board, established in 1988. And it's a 7-person board, all residents, and, appointed by the president and consent of the Board of Trustees. And they're one-year terms.
Joe, do you know when's the last time they met? I know we had previous discussions about this board, that the township has expertise and have been doing a really good job taking care of our seniors, and that's why we didn't want to have double coverage, so to speak.
My understanding, it's been nearly 10 years since they've last met. And we only have 1 person on the commission right now, and there is no response.
Well, that's probably one that we don't even need to meet with the people on. Talk to the 1 person and see what they think, but I'm guessing they're going to say.
Got 2 messages and they
Oh, so, okay, so. Hey, we got one we can kill tonight.
There you go.
So to speak.
Oh, boy.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like you to know that my paperwork says that the Senior Citizens Advisory Board was established in 1850.
So
I don't know.
Commission member
Another party heard from.
And somebody, but
I think it's after 9.
I think so.
We're almost done, right, Joe?
Yes, almost there.
I think we should check and make sure that Trustee Dodge and Trustee Gear are okay with that, especially when you take a look at Dodge.
All right, I'll go moving forward. Stellwagen Family Farm Foundation, 501c3. This foundation comprised of 5 members. I think we kind of discussed this. Consistent with the other 501cs.
Seemed like we had a pretty long discussion about how 501c3s and the village commission should be exactly mirrored, not only bylaws but also by members, which we might have to work with them. But
Yeah, this isn't a commission. This is truly a foundation. There is no commission. So this is made up of members of the Stellwagen Farm family, which is a condition of the granting of the farm, the purchase, and the life estate, and all those other things that have already occurred.
so, Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Calendrell.
so we have no power over them, and so technically this isn't even a commission.
No, it's a foundation.
It's a foundation. So
And do we fund it at all?
You fund, you do. You fund the same as the open lands, it requires a separate audit and all those type of financial records. So you do provide them a grant to offset the costs of those auditing fees and financial fees every year, as well as like the gas and the security system at the farm and all those things. There is a general fund, monies that are put towards that. The renovations, the majority of the renovations that have happened at the Stellwagen Farm have been paid for by the family, the Stellwagen family. However, recently there have been some additional funds that were granted through the last budget cycle to do some additional restoration to the farmhouse.
So we do give them some funds. We give them some funds for maintenance. We should probably take a look at this and see how how it works together. The other thing is I think we're planning on doing some programming out at Stellwagen Farm. So again, this goes back to, and maybe Parks and Rec is, maybe it needs to be more than one board with the fact that you've got a museum to program, you have a Stellwagen Farm to program, we have some open lands areas to program. So there's a lot of things going on here, and maybe something that coordinates these groups, or in some cases, for Parks and Rec, another example is it's kind of nice to have someone from Parks and Rec on our Economic Development Advisory Board, because that's part of our economic development, is to look to, bring tournaments in and those types of things because of the additional economic activity. So having that cross-feeding is very helpful. So that may be something to consider. Any other comments? All right, next.
And Veterans Commission, established in the 1980s, late 1980s. Again, 9 members to be appointed by the village president with advice and consent of the trustees. And there are the requirements. Shall have served in one of the American military branches and have been honorably discharged. Failure to attend 4 regular meetings within a 1-year period without reasonable excuse shall constitute sufficient grounds for termination of the member's appointment. The purpose of the Veterans Commission is to promote veterans awareness, so on and so forth.
Any questions on this?
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Ruzek.
I do see that Mr. Duvaldy is here, so maybe he has comments. I do, desperately.
I'll be at least 5. First of all, I want to thank the village for the opportunity to provide these services to veterans. Veterans Commission is a very vibrant group. We're very active. We do many programs a year. For the past several years, we've enjoyed the support of the village board. A couple of comments about the process we went through. I met at our table at the Veterans Commission a couple of young gentlemen from planning, I think, or public works.
And Tom, how many members of the Veterans? There was you're actually not a member. You're the recording secretary, right, from staff, and then 1 member. Okay.
Here's the value that came from that. They didn't know much about the Veterans Commission. They asked some questions that, quite frankly, I didn't expect. So you kind of have to get out of your comfort zone and look at, are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? If we are, great. If we're not, why did we change? And is this good? And how do we incorporate it into our mission? Because I don't think this has been looked at since it was established back in the late 80s and early 90s. So I think it'd be a great opportunity to have somebody who really doesn't know much about the Veterans Commission to sit down and try to determine, are you guys doing what you're supposed to do? If not, why? And do we need to amend your charge, or do we have to bring it back to center and make sure you're doing what your duties call for? The good news is we're all military, so we know how to take orders. We identify our mission and we take the hill. So thanks for the opportunity.
And Tom, real quick, I got a couple of questions. Did anyone bring up in this, I know it's come up several times, the issues revolving around funding, i.e. raffle licenses, golf outing, and how the commission is allowed to raise funds given its current structure? And then with that kind of flows off of that question is the possibility of this commission becoming a 501(c), so the work that they do put together to raise that money stays inside there and does not flow back into our general fund, which is what happens now.
Well, raffles are kind of a gray area, and I know there's a lot of documentation going back and forth between administration, the village attorney, and now the Veterans Commission, under special circumstances, can't apply for a raffle license. Mostly,
if you were a 501(c), that wouldn't be an issue.
If we were a 501(c)(3), which would be a tremendous advantage for the Veterans Commission, it would also have to be consistent with the other foundations that are set up in the village so that we all kind of follow the same rules. The biggest thing there, the most important thing, is accounting and accounting practices to make sure that we work within the guidelines of the finance department and do things according to Hoyle. We often go off script and do whatever we want to do, and sometimes we have to be pulled back to where we need to be. What else did you ask?
That was it.
That's it?
You got it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Any other comments or questions?
Right. So the last part is that was it with the commissions and the advisory board. So in talking to Trustee Calandrello, to give those who may not have had the opportunity to come to the Saturday morning meeting, for whatever reason, whether it was a public or a commission member, that we would place this on several of our, whether it's our website, links with the social media, and also our Grapevine, the online virtual town hall, to offer input on the commissions and boards. Trustee Calandrello, I don't know if you want
Just to piggyback a little bit,
Thank you.
We'll combine the survey input, so then the board will have that input on the 15th of December, so they have some time before the holiday to look at it and then see if we need to make any changes in January. I think the key thing is the conversation we had, it was a good conversation. The conversation we had in the workshop was a good conversation. It involved an open process. We're not done here. We're just moving, we're checking off another box in this discussion. There's nothing holding any of us back from talking to every member of these commissions. There's nothing holding us back from talking to everyone under the moon, go door to door on Christmas Eve to talk to people. Well, maybe my wife will be holding me back on that one. But this is not the end. This is just the continuing of the process of being an open and transparent process. So I appreciate staff. They spent some time on this. I appreciate the board. And I appreciate the audience we have today sticking around. And I appreciate some of the people talking today. And thank you very much.
There was one other person who did sign up to speak. Jack, do you still want to talk, or I know we skipped over the ED board.
Didn't even know. So that may be something you might want to think about. The flip side, because I sit on the board for the Art Institute in Chicago, so I mean, I'm kind of like, wow, we do. And so it's good to know. But I think that I would certainly think it would be right to reach out to everybody before you each name them and say, okay, we're done. For a simple reason. These are people that work in the professions that you kind of
We don't know if we're going to issue it or not because no one showed up. I can tell you in my group, everybody had a specific thing they were doing. They just not did spend time in their jammies watching cartoons. They were at tournaments and left the day before. So with that, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. I want to thank you for letting me contribute back to the town I've lived in my whole married life, and I hope I can make you proud of some of the stuff we do.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Carroll.
I'll have these comments while we're still on the topic of the workshop. First of all, I wanted to thank staff because I know they all came out and volunteered their time on a Saturday morning, specifically because they were in the room tonight. Assistant Village Managers Freiling and Keating and Ryan Collins that was here earlier. I know Mr. Lamargo, we had sent you off on some conference that week, so you weren't there. But and then Lynn McQuarrie, who was our assistant, that did a lot of the mailing out of the requests and the emails to the commissioners, to the public, to get kind of the input of those that couldn't attend. I do know what kind of the inference was about the number of commissions that didn't come out. Part of that was, like we talked about, that some of these commissions haven't met in 10 years. Some of them haven't met in 6 or 7 years, and that may be why they didn't come out. And that, I think, speaks volumes, especially when we don't get any response back from those emails and letters we sent out. But I will say that's not unique to any of the old commissions that haven't met in a while, because I went back and looked at just the last appointees, not renewal appointees, but new appointees in the last 6 months. I think there were 18 of them, and 16 of those 18 weren't there. So that happens with any time you have a volunteer, but they were all given the opportunity, like Trustee Calandrello said, to submit any input they had through email, through the survey, and some of those were codified into the book that staff put out for us. I did enjoy some of the references to the ad hoc commission, not so subtle references. I think this board looked at that possibility. I myself, as Trustee Calandrello has said 3 or 4 times, have no issue with any of the proposed appointees that have come up time and time again. My only concern is these committees, advisory boards, and commissions are designed by ordinance to advise us. To have someone else tell us what we want, to me, this doesn't make any sense. I think, even though, like I said, the first time it came up, I'm not looking to take on more work for us. It still should be we who decide what we want these commissions and committees to do, and that's why I thought Trustee Calandrello's idea about this workshop was perfect. The one thing that I took away from tonight when the mayor was talking about the interplay of the different commissions was maybe what we can do is have an annual meeting where the chairman or designee of each of the commissions or advisory boards comes and appears before us, and we have that kind of roundtable discussion about what each commission or committee is doing and how they can maybe interplay, how certain committees or commissions can work off each other. That I hadn't thought of prior to tonight, and that might be a great idea. But I think this process was a good one, and I think, as Trustee Calandrello said, it's not done. We still have some work to do.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Fenton.
One of the things we didn't touch on would be something like if we wanted to come up with a new committee for our commission. For example, I think we desperately need a technology commission, or whatever you would want to call it, technology, whatever. That's the best one I can come up with. But I think that's something we also need to look at, that Trustee Calandrello can put in with this input, is what other type of commissions are possibilities out there for us. And for example, a tech commission, you would want people with that background. You wouldn't want me on it for sure, but people with that technology background, I think, is something that we need out there. I know we had one long time ago, but it really didn't serve its purpose. And I think with Director Frank over there, it would be a good help for him too.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Calandrello.
That's something that, Joe and I and everyone talked about. I know Trustee Dodge wanted it too. So I think unless there's an objection, we should start putting it out there and see what the public says about a technology committee. And I know Trustee Dodge talked about this committee would be formed to, I don't want to speak for him, but he always speaks for himself long, so we know what he says all the time. So something about having input on the village technology, current and future, and any improvements. I think that'd be a good one. That'd be the duties, and then we could flush it out through the open process. And just to go back on the invitations, we got the list of the commissions from the mayor's office, so I'm sorry that you weren't on there, but I'm glad through other ways we got the info to you, so. Well, I mean, right, but how'd you show up? No, the meeting on the 20th.
And just to be clear, it wasn't the mayor's office that sent that out. It was the assistant to the Board of Trustees.
But the mayor's office gave the
And
members.
Yep.
So, and
Which-
that assistant gave it out to all the names that you gave her, so. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Ruzick.
One thing that seems clear is that we need to update our list of commissioners and contact information, because it doesn't seem like we have maybe some current contact information, so I'd suggest we start there.
And contact information is tough when you don't have contact information.
Well, we know his contact information.
Right, well, no,
He didn't get it.
yeah, he
so.
gets, believe me, we have his contact information. Any other comments? So I have a couple comments. I'm sure you're surprised. So one of the things that I think would be very helpful with this process is to have some in-depth individual discussions. As someone who does, who has done some consulting in my time where we look at changing organizations and have those in-depth interviews, you get a lot more, it can get a lot more out of in-depth interviews. Groups are great, you get some information, but you get more from having some in-depth discussions. When I was, shortly after I arrived here, and plus just before I got here, several issues regarding our commissions, which have come out again tonight. Lack of regularly held meetings, we have bylaws that are in conflict with our ordinances, trustees as voting members of commissions, which we talked about, commissions that we don't have, or that we don't need, and or can be combined, which some of that we've talked about tonight, but we maybe don't have enough input except for the one to make those calls quite yet. Commissions that we need but don't have, and obviously one that came up tonight was technology. Another one potentially, and I don't know if this is a subset of rec or it's a separate commission, is something that kind of brings all of those commissions that have programming involved together, because that programming is important on how we coordinate that. Maybe it's a subcommittee of Parks and Rec, I don't know. But those are some options. A lot of commissions, or some of the commissions, could add a lot more value if they're given real responsibilities, which helps us, which helps staff. I think most of the trustees, it took a while, but most of the trustees agreed. Frankly, I thought this was something we could get done and add value to the village, working together by making our citizen commissions more valuable. I would have never expected it to take 5 months to work on an overhaul that was so clearly so desperately needed. And clearly, since the board feels the same way, because the ad hoc committee, which came up a few times tonight, because we've been talking about it for a long time, actually passed 7-0. So everyone here voted, everyone here plus the two that aren't. I've heard a lot about not willing to compromise. I can tell you it passed 7-0 and there wasn't one suggestion to change it. Also, we could have passed this, if I didn't want to work together, we could have passed this committee 3-2 when trustees Gira and Fenton were absent. But the discussion was, let's not do that, it's not going to help get people to work together. And then also with this workshop, if I wanted to kill it, all I had to do was not show up. We would have not had a quorum and the meeting would have ended. But more input is better than less input. So there's no reason why we can't do this and this process in conjunction with looking in more depth and looking at and talking to individuals. For example, tonight, this was by far the best discussion we've had about this, because we actually discussed the issues, which was great. Could have had this a long time ago, but we had it tonight, which was great. But still, there's 2 trustees that are missing tonight that also missed the workshop. So we have no input from them at all. So I think it benefits everyone to look a little bit more in depth. I would encourage you guys to pass the ad hoc committee like we have in the past, get some people in it and let them go out and talk to people, get some in-depth information and bring that to the table too. It's an and, it's not an or, it's an and. And more discussion is good. Clearly we need a technology commission, and again, maybe they would get some more information from those individuals about what commissions we should get rid of, or should they have a better charter, and then maybe we don't get rid of them, maybe we just give them a better charter. So it's up to you. Obviously, I can't make the change myself, and wouldn't try, but again, I think it's more advantageous to have an and rather than an or. And with that, I will entertain a motion to take the motion off the table.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Ruzick.
I move to approve removing the special ad hoc committee appointments from the table.
Has a second? So I will second it. So can I have a vote, call the roll on removing from the table?
Trustee Ruzick.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Trustee Fenton.
No.
Trustee Calandrello.
No.
Trustee Carroll.
Nay.
The motion fails 3-2. With that, we'll move on to board comments. Trustee Carroll.
No citizen comments, John? No citizen comments?
I think all the citizens spoke.
Yeah, all the citizens have spoke.
Okay. No comments, Mr. Mayor.
Any comments, Trustee Fenton?
No.
Trustee Calandrello.
Mr. Mayor, you had the last word on the last thing, and you're going to have the last word again. But, with all due respect, I'm just disturbed at the constant display of resistance and hostility. You keep on coming up with this ad hoc committee idea, which isn't done in the process. This harmony that people are witnessing at this board regarding this topic is generated by only one person, and it's you. You're the only one that keeps on bringing this and sticking it in our face, and that's harming our brand. I'm not sure why you so rigidly don't want the open and transparent process. I know you had some people come up here today that so happened to that talked about it, and I respect them for coming in the citizens, but their script was the same over and over again, and I'll leave that at the way it is. And I don't know why you harshly are against this. I don't know if it's because you're on the minority side of the vote and just can't let it go. I mean, true leadership is not about fighting over and over and over on small issues, but building consensus and getting things done. That's what the residents want us. And we've got things done. But the issue that this is doing to us is it's creating irreparable harm to Orland Park's brand. That we're fighting over everything, which isn't true. That the brand of Orland Park is being hurt by this battle that you keep on fighting. I don't know if it's because we all need to be reminded that this is a strong village manager form of government, that it's designed to be protecting over either one rogue mayor, one rogue trustee, who that one trustee can go over their authority, or the mayor that go over the authority. Is this about a mayor who doesn't allow qualified staff to do their job? Is it about a mayor who yells about a trustee working on an issue, important community issue? I'm not sure. All I know is all 7 of us up here have the same power. The only thing that the mayor has extra is additional ceremonial duties. We all have the same power to move this. People will take notice of what happened today, and I'm sure, everyone's going to have their opinion, and I respect everyone's opinion. And I can only imagine what you're going to say on your post and blog about me, how I'm fighting you tooth and nail. Everyone's blogs is freedom of speech and do whatever you want. I hope you make it accurate statements and you don't call us names, because that's hurting the brand. I just hope we stop this harmful rhetoric, this harmful, inaccurate rhetoric, and to stop harming the brand of Orland Park. We had some great thing that passed today. $18 million of money to our coffers because of a downtown project. But we just spent 3 hours on a thing which we needed to spend on. But guess what? The press is probably going to write about what I'm just saying right now, which isn't right. $18 million. And hopefully that's in your papers, not about the fight we're having here, because the $18 million is what Orland Park is about. We're a progressive community making good choices for our residents. And we deserve better. The residents deserve better. And the only person that has the power to stop this fighting is the mayor. And I hope that we can work together and if we're disagreeing on things, that's fine. But let's stop harming our brand and let's just get things done, because all the residents in front of us want us to get things done and stop this. So I hope that what we did today will stop today and we continue to improve our brand, not hurt our brand with what's going on in the board. Thank you.
Trustee Ruzick.
I just want to remind everyone that we do have a very important meeting on November 27th coming up on video gambling. And we would like to have everyone's input. If you can't make it, if you can drop us an email, we'd love to hear from you or your family, friends. And happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Civic Center, 7 p.m.
Oh, Civic Center, 7 p.m. It's not in the boardroom.
7? And again, I would like to comment on the fact that we had the best discussion that we've had. I think I said that earlier. And by the way, the people that spoke, only one of those people that spoke was appointed by me. Those other people were appointed by my predecessor. It's unfortunate you took the opportunity to lecture from here. I mean, you can make statements, but a personal lecture is inappropriate. But I would like to correct you about the mayor's power. Heaven forbid there's ever an emergency around here, but that falls on the mayor's office. So there are a lot of responsibilities that the mayor has. Some of it statutorily the mayor does not have, but a lot of it the mayor does, and I get a ton of phone calls that I deal with every day from residents that the trustees have no idea. I also represent the village in many different forums, and the trustees have no idea, because you don't sit in this chair, or you don't sit in these shoes. On this table, I've never said anything other than the fact that I'm 1 vote out of 7. So what I really wanted to speak about at the end of this was what a great Veterans Day ceremony it was. I had some comments to make with the deputy counsel from France, and Tom Dubelby. Give him a round of applause for a great job they did posting that. And I had a very good discussion with some of the young leaders that we have in the Army, because I sat in their shoes where I had to lead young men. At that time, it was young men into battle. And the sacrifice that both our veterans and our current active duty military members make should be commended. So that's all I have to add for tonight, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
We have an executive session.
Oh, we have to go to closed session. I'll take a motion to go to closed session.
Mr. Chairman, move to go in executive session for A, approval of minutes, B, appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific village employees, and C, purchase or lease of real property for the use of the village.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello?
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick?
Aye.
Trustee Carroll?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.